Welcome back to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining me today because, honestly, I've got my red string and corkboard out. Today, we are putting on our investigative journalist hats, and we are cracking open the case files on what is easily one of the most fascinating and frankly terrifying phenomenons from the War of Crowns cycle. We're talking about the shadow bureaucracy. Now, if you know the lore, you know about the Treaty of Ash. It was supposed to be this huge, victorious peace agreement, right? But what we're going to expose today is how that treaty contained a loophole so massive you could march an army through it. Or rather, you could slide a filing cabinet through it. Because this loophole allowed dark magic and lesser demons to literally masquerade as boring, everyday administrative procedure. We are going to dig deep into exactly how ambitious human rulers traded away their long-term independence for short-term political convenience. And as you'll see, we're going to look at how a nation doesn't necessarily collapse from an invading army breaking down the gates, but from a perfectly organized, highly efficient filing system.
So here is our agenda for this explainer. First, the treaty's dark loophole. Then we'll look at Caldrin's silent cabinet, Maera and the bird songs, Othran's practical sin, the Hall of Lamps crisis, and finally, threatening the high crowns.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the treaty's dark loophole. Okay, so the fatal flaw of the Treaty of Ash, the thing that literally everyone missed, is that it didn't actually end the danger of demons. Not even close. All it did was give that danger a highly organized, bureaucratic language. Think about it. The human world was divided. It was exhausted by fear. And in that vulnerability, humanity gave lesser demons something incredibly powerful in exchange for some minor everyday conveniences. They gave them procedure. They gave them regulation. Suddenly, these demons weren't these terrifying monsters lurking in the dark trying to eat your soul. No, they were entities that could be approached, they could be questioned, and they could be arranged by mundane clerks, priests, and merchants. It's the banality of it all that's so chilling. The procedure itself became the weapon. It's like finding out your accountant is slowly stealing your house, line item by line item. Let's actually look at the exact playbook these lesser demons use to infiltrate the royal courts, because it's a brilliant four-step trap. And notice, it literally never starts with a demand for your soul. That's too obvious. Step 1, it starts with a useful coincidence. A map mysteriously corrects itself just in time, or a spy returns with intel that should have been impossible to get. Step 2, it morphs into administrative convenience. The ruler thinks, wow, I've discovered this hidden, super efficient asset. It makes their job easier. But then step 3 hits, and this is where the jaws of the trap snap shut. It turns into reliance. The demons actually stop asking for blood sacrifices. Do you know what they ask for instead? Clerk appointments, official titles, access to the archives. And finally, step 4 results in full policy control. And honestly, if you look at real-world history, this perfectly mirrors examples where supposed administrative reforms and a desperate drive for efficiency actually just serve as gateways for encroaching systemic corruption. The efficiency masks the state collapse until it's way too late to fix it. Moving on to Section 2, Caldrin's silent cabinet. Let's look at our first specific case study. We need to talk about Regent Caldrin of the Northern Kingdom of Varos, because his story is absolutely wild. Caldrin was a ruler who was paralyzed by paranoia. He was completely terrified of his own court. He desperately wanted order. And the lesser demon Shax offered him that order, but not through assassinations or violence. Shax offered order through silence, and he did it so subtly. Crucial documents belonging to Caldrin's political rivals just suddenly misplaced in the archives. The voices of dissenting ministers, they would literally physically fade away, just lose their breath at the exact moment they started making a persuasive argument during council meetings. Accused traitors would inexplicably forget names during their trials. It was brilliant because it just looked like perfectly natural incompetence. There was no blood on the floor. Caldrin completely mistook this demonic convenience for an effective political strategy.
He really believed he was stabilizing his realm. But here is the kicker. The immediate benefit of eradicating his rivals carried a horrific eventual cost. Without realizing it, Caldrin was completely eliminating the very concept of political debates and institutional integrity in Varos. He didn't build a strong government. He just built a very quiet graveyard.
Next up, Section 3, Maera and the Bird Songs. Now we head over to the eastern glass coast, and we meet Lady Maera. Maera is fascinating because she is the classic example of a ruler who thought she was the smartest person in the room. She genuinely believed she was clever enough to manipulate a demon without getting burned. She partnered with the demon Decarabia, who was a master of perfect imitation. And she set up these incredible artificial birds perched all along her harbor towers. These birds would sing the weather, they would predict the ocean currents, and get this, they would foretell market panics 3 days before they happened. It was a total game changer. Maera essentially monopolized the entire coastal market by arranging these natural-looking misfortunes for all her competitors. But here is the most insidious, stomach-churning part of this whole arrangement. To pay Decarabia, Maera didn't build some dark altar in a basement. No, she just had every single child in the harbor learn the demonic bird songs as nursery rhymes. She completely normalized demonic technology into the culture. She basically ensured that the next generation wouldn't even know where the natural weather ended and demonic influence began. She traded her people's cultural soul for a better stock portfolio.
Section 4. Othran's Practical Sin. Let's bring in King Othran from the southern dustlands to really pull this all together. Othran was a scholar king. He entirely rejected metaphysics and magic. He was a man of science and logistics. But his kingdom was dying of drought. So what did he do? He eagerly embraced supernatural infrastructure to find hidden water beneath the desert. Now, looking at this comparison, it brilliantly illustrates how all three of our rulers fell into the exact same trap. Think about it. Caldrin, Maera, and Othran had entirely different specific goals, right? Silencing dissent, controlling trade, surviving a drought. They partnered with entirely different lesser demons, and they all secured massive, undeniable, immediate benefits. It worked, at first. But the real trap is always in the eventual cost. Othran found his water, yes, but suddenly he had a massive surplus, and he had to build infrastructure to move it, and then he ended up justifying bloody military conquest across the desert by simply calling it the distribution of those water benefits. The demon didn't make him go to war. The demon just gave him the logistical capacity to do it.
So when we step back and look at this broader theme, we have to ask, why? Why do leaders mistake this demonic convenience for effective strategy? Well, it's because rulers almost always prioritize short-term stability over the long-term integrity of their institutions. And you can kind of understand it, right? Fear, a massive drought, a dangerous political rival. Those things are staring them right in the face today. Institutional rot is a problem for 10 years from now. But the terrifying reality is that the transition from independent governance to reliance on supernatural administrative assistance is a one-way street. You don't just use a demon to fix a pothole and then fire them. Once that system is in place, you are dependent on it. Immediate administrative stability is inevitably, 100% of the time, paid for with eventual institutional rot. Which brings us to the unsung hero, or rather the incredibly stressed-out investigator of our story, Ilion Mar. Mar was the one who actually spotted the unnatural perfection in the kingdom's ledgers. The math was just a little too clean, and he realized the horrific truth, perfectly captured in this quote. The danger is not that demons have entered courts. The danger is that courts are learning to behave like demons and call it leadership. This hits the nail on the head. You see, the lesser demons didn't view human leaders as respected partners. No way. They viewed them merely as opportunistic vessels to spread their own quiet conquest. The ultimate lesser demon design wasn't to destroy humanity. It was to convince humanity to conquer itself using borrowed shadows and then arrogantly call the result civilization. Let's look at how the establishment reacted in Section 5, the Hall of Lamps crisis. So when Ailian Mar's terrifying investigative report finally reached the religious authorities in the Hall of Lamps, you'd think they would just purge the demons immediately, right? Wrong. It sparked a profoundly paralyzing internal crisis. They were completely divided. Archkeeper Havel demanded full public disclosure, tell the people the truth. Mother Ariana pushed back, terrified it would cause mass panic and riots. Sister Vey took the hardline approach, demanding a total, immediate ban on all shadow bureaucracy. But then, Elder Sommet spoke up, and he asked the most devastating question of the entire cycle. If we ban this right now, how many innocent people will die of thirst in Othran's desert? How many will starve if Maera's ships crash? This internal conflict is just chef's kiss for highlighting how systemic dependency inevitably erodes the moral foundation of human leadership. The religious leaders literally couldn't ban the demons because the darkness had become the actual, literal public infrastructure keeping their citizens alive. And finally, Section 6, threatening the high crowns. Let's see how this all blows up. As you can guess, this local administrative rot didn't stay local for long. It quickly escalated into a global supernatural catastrophe. These localized demonic technological advancements fueled massive, unprecedented territorial expansions. Suddenly, Varus conquered the treacherous northern mountains in just 40 days. All thanks to uncanny, impossibly perfect supply logistics provided by Shax. The Glass Coast utterly dominated the seas. Othran's roads expanded deep into uncrossable deserts. Human borders were being violently redrawn, not by pure military genius, but entirely by the machinery of borrowed necessity. Humanity had stumbled into a brand new style of empire building. Total domination, neatly disguised as useful administration. But as always in this universe, every action has a reaction. These massive mortal power shifts had a huge, unintended consequence. They directly threatened the established demonic hierarchy. The high crowns, the heavy hitters of the demon world, finally noticed what was going on down below. Thale, the first king, was deeply insulted. He saw mortals building these massive empires without offering him a single drop of traditional tribute. Belial, on the other hand, was just smiling. He absolutely loved seeing human politicians acting exactly like his own greedy pupils. And Valak was just laughing at the sheer, chaotic, multi-front instability of it all. The human world, by trying to be clever with filing cabinets and trade routes, was blindly stepping right into the middle of the War of Crowns. They were turning mortal governments into giant mirrors that just reflected demonic ambitions back upward. And this brings us to what I think is the most incredibly powerful takeaway of the entire lore drop. Sacrifice shocks the conscience. Bureaucracy exhausts it. If a demon shows up and demands you sacrifice your firstborn, society will instantly rebel. It's shocking. We fight that. But the lesser demons figured out a hack. They stopped asking for blood, and they started asking for clerk appointments. They turned raw ambition into mundane paperwork, and they turned sheer terror into a manageable budget line item. And that is so much harder to fight. A corrupt king can be overthrown by a revolution, right? But a bureaucratic habit? That survives. It just slides right under the next king's administration, wearing the exact same official seal. So as we wrap up this case file, I want to leave you with this chilling question to really ponder. Is it still your victory if a shadow is holding the pen? The lesser demons didn't conquer human thrones by force or fire. They didn't need to. They simply became the unquestioned daily administrative habits of the empire. It's such a brilliant, dark exploration of how quickly and quietly we can trade our autonomy for efficiency, all without ever noticing the strings being attached. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this gave you a whole new perspective on the War of Crowns. Stay curious and remember, always keep questioning the systems around you.